got those phones still out, we're going to be in John 11. A lot of people like to follow along on their Bible app. Or maybe you have a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, we offer them on the way in, and so you can grab a Bible, or we'll put it up on the screen. Just want to make sure that you know that my opinion isn't the one that matters. It's the Bible. So we always put that in front of you so you can watch and follow along what's going on. Well, let me ask you this. If God were able to sit across from you at a cafe, you could just have a sit-down conversation with him. Or maybe your phone rings in the middle of this service, and your caller ID says, "The Lord," on it, right? And you're able to answer that, and it's actually God. And he says at some point, "You know what? What's the one thing you'd have me do? What's the one thing, if I could snap my fingers and make a difference in your life, what's that one thing that you would have me do?" We're going to look at a story today where there is not just one person, but an entire family and group of friends that, man, they were all kind of in agreement if God could just do this one thing. So watch this together with me. It's John 11, verse 1. It says, "Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary, and her sister Martha." Now, is that Mary, Jesus' mother? No. In verse 2, it says, "This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair." Do you remember that story? Where she comes in, the religious leader hasn't given Jesus the courtesy of wiping his feet, of cleaning his feet, or having one of his servants do it. And so this woman, Mary, comes in, her tears moisten Jesus' feet. Her hair wipes away the dirt. She puts expensive perfume on him. So this is a person, they're close. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, is the same one who poured perfume on the Lord Jesus' feet. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." Now, when you get a cold, do you call everybody, all your friends and your family, and say, "I've got a cold"? No, you don't. This is the kind of sickness that when Lazarus gets this kind of sickness, this is the kind of sickness that you call the friends, you call the family, you say, "Hey, you need to be praying about this. It's serious." Or, "Hey, you need to come and say your goodbyes because this is getting serious." So Jesus comes along in verse 4. It says, "And Jesus, when he heard this, said, 'This sickness will not end in death.'" And can we just stop right there and thank God for the gospel? I mean, just the plain old gospel. The good news about Jesus. That because of him and his dying on the cross, he took our punishment on that cross. That if we believe in him and put our trust and our faith in Jesus, that our sickness doesn't end in death. Hey, our death doesn't end in death. And we will overcome death, be resurrected with him, and go and be with God forever. Is that not amazing? Do you not just celebrate that when you see it? That's the gospel right there. What sickness are you encountering? They're calling alcoholism, all these isms, a lot of horrible things, these diseases. I'll say any evil in the world. We'll call evil itself. We'll call sin itself a sickness. Jesus said this sickness will not end in death. Of course it won't, because death doesn't even end in death for those that love Jesus. No, it is for God's glory that God's Son may be glorified through it. Okay, Jesus has got a little divine strategy going on here. He's going to work together something for the good. He's going to teach us a lesson through this thing. So right from the beginning, Jesus is completely in control of this Lazarus guy who's getting sick. Jesus is going to be, using that in a way to teach us something. So our eyes get open. We become more alert to what's about to happen. Now, speaking of death, I don't know how many of you love scary movies. I do not love scary movies, mostly because they scare me, okay? I do not like them at all. But what I've noticed about scary movies is that a lot of them will tend to have a sound or a phrase or something that gets associated with that movie. And then I'm telling you, you can recognize the movie just like that. So that if I say, dun-dun, what is it? Jaws. And we never want to go to a beach again, right? I mean, you got people in Michigan who won't even get in their own lake, because of Jaws. It doesn't make any sense. Dun-dun. And we get scared. What about this one? What is that? Psycho. You all know it, right? I mean, it's just crazy. I was watching a movie one time, and I'll tell you the scary thing. When there was a babysitter in the house. I don't even remember the movie. There's a babysitter in the house, and she keeps getting these phone calls. The guy's like, I'm going to get you, or whatever. And she's on the phone, and she hangs up, and she calls the police real quick. She says, I'm getting these phone calls. Will you trace the phone call? And they say, hold on, ma'am. And they trace the phone call, and it comes back, and they say, get out of the house, ma'am. Why? What's going on? The phone calls, ma'am, are coming from inside the house. It freaks me out. 10 years ago, do you guys remember the movie with Bruce Willis and that little boy, what is his name? Holy Osmond, or whatever his name was? I don't remember. Holy Osmond. But he comes up. Do you remember what he said in that movie? No, he didn't. You all said, I see dead people. That's not how he said it. Remember how he said it? I see dead people. Right? Oh my gosh. Do not whisper it like that, Oh, but here's the deal. I had somebody tell me that about 10 years ago. He said, I want you to come up here and plant a church up here in Michigan because everywhere I go, I see dead people. He said, you know that movie? I said, yeah, I know that movie. He said, no, and I don't mean ghosts. I mean, I'm watching people. They're walking around. They're alive on the outside, but on the inside, they're dead. He was a cop. He's now your campus pastor, Bob Smith. But he said, as I'm locking people up, as I'm going out on calls, I'm watching, Dave, I see people that are spiritually dead, and you got to come up here and do something about it. And ever since he said that to me, everywhere I go, I'm noticing dead people. I will see people that are walking around and little girls in outfits that their daddy should not let them be in. And I'm thinking to myself, what is dead on the inside of you that makes you want to let everybody know what you're trying to let them know? I don't know. But I'll see teenagers that'll be walking around with these headphones and the music blaring so loud, trying to drown out the deadness. I don't know why I'm picking on teenagers right now, but the cutting? You ask these kids, why are you cutting yourself? So I can feel something. That's a deadness on the inside of somebody. I go to the airport. I'll go to the airport tonight. I'm going out to Salt Lake City for a conference. I will see in that airport people walking around in their business suits, trying to impress each other. What are we doing that we buy the car or we try whatever we wear or whatever it is to kind of let everybody know, hey, we are somebody. We're worth something. It's a deadness inside. And people come up and, my marriage, I don't know what happened. I feel like we're just co-parents. I feel like we're just roommates. And what was alive, what was supposed to be, what God designed, this beautiful, fun, oneness in a relationship is deteriorated into just passing each other in the driveway and coordinating who's picking up who at soccer. There's a deadness that can creep into us even while we live. 1 Timothy 5:6 says, the widow who lives for pleasure, she is dead even while she lives. You see the concepts even in the Bible, that you could be animated, you can be walking around, but dead inside. And I would ask you again, if God called you on the phone, if he sat next to you in a cafe, and he said, what do you want me to switch? What do you want me to turn around? Is there some area of your life that's dying or dead? And if it's all the way dead, no worries, because I've got good news for you. Jesus heard that his good friend Lazarus was dead. And Jesus waited 2 days. Because Jesus, like we said before, he's got an angle he's working. He's got something he's trying to do. He's got something that he wants to show us. And so he waits 2 days and then says to his disciples, well, let's go back to Judea where Lazarus was. And he begins a journey where we are going to be introduced to 3 different characters, each who have a death trap to show us. And the first one is Thomas. Now, we know what Thomas is known for, right? What did Thomas always do? Thomas doubted, yes. And I know the story in the Bible where he says, let me feel the wounds in your hands, Jesus said, before I'll ever believe in you. I know that story, but I didn't realize there was another place where Thomas was doubting. Apparently he had a real problem with it. Because Jesus says, let's go back to Judea. The disciples say, no, let's not do that because we just came from there. And remember, they tried to stone you there, Jesus. This is not a good place to go back to. But Jesus said, no, let's go back there. But look what Thomas, called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples. Oh, okay, let's go back also that we may die with him. You hear the sarcasm in there? Like, if we go back there, we're just going to die with him. He's doubting Jesus all over again. He's doubting whether or not Jesus is as in control as he thinks he is. Jesus, are you as smart as you seem to be? Are you even real? Are you good? What doubts creep into your mind? God, are you even there? God, I pray these prayers. It feels like they hit the ceiling and go nowhere else. I have doubts about whether God is good, he's real, he's in control, whether he really has a purpose for all this junk that happens in our life. Are we really going to be able to get to the end of time and look back at all the evil and all the junk and all the stuff that's happened in our life and say, God, you are good, I can worship you for eternity? It takes faith to believe that. Doubt creeps in. Doubt creeps in. It can be something that begins to kill our relationship with God. Martha comes on the scene. Thomas was dead in his doubts. Martha is dead in her delay. She wants Jesus to answer her prayer right now. I want you to answer my prayer, Jesus, but I want you to answer it the way and when I want you to answer it. In verse 17, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus has already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, why does he tell you he's in the tomb for 4 days? Because back then they didn't have the EKG, they didn't have the tests, to figure out if somebody was dead. Back then somebody would pass out, they'd be like, is he dead? I don't know. Is he dead? Put a test on him. We don't have those yet. What are we going to do? So he said he was dead 4 days. He even tells you, the writer here, even tells you the body began to stink. So it's like, no, he's dead. He's not just like a little bit dead, not just like a Chuck Norris dead where like he dies, but they throw a little adrenaline on him and he's like, now I'm back up, I'm going to beat up some people. Not like a movie dead. This guy's dead. In fact, I looked up in the King James. Do you know the King James? You know what I'm talking about, the King James, the these and the thous, It's such a nice language. I read that sometimes just for fun, especially in this passage, because in this passage it said, the body stinketh. Go look it up. I love that. It's like, how do we put a little classy twist on rot and decay? It stinketh. Right. Anyway. So it says in verse 21, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. You waited 2 days. I know where you were. I know how long it takes to go. If you'd have heard this and come immediately, but you wait 2 days? You ever want to say to God, hey, what's taking so long? You promised to do all these things. I've been praying. God, why aren't you answering my prayers in the timing that I want you to answer my prayers? I used to work with college age and young adults. And every one of them thought if they could just get married, their problems would be over. I just want to get married. I just want to get married. I just want to get married. And so what would happen is when, they begin to go, the passage of time, they begin to look around going, I'm praying, what's going on? Why isn't this happening? And you'd start to see a real temptation in them to settle. to kind of take their ideal, their bar for what they were looking for, and they begin to sort of lower that bar. Well, you know what? I don't care if that guy doesn't love Jesus. And I don't care if he doesn't have a job and lives with his mother in her basement and plays video games. He's got career goals. He's in a band. You know, and it just lowered. It's like, I want Mr. Right now. Forget Mr. Right. And I just pray for him. Hey, you know what? You got to be patient and wait on God. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, but I believe that God not only does the right things, but I think he does them in the right time. Do you believe that? And I don't always understand his timing, but I have seen in my life where God has waited and not answered something in the time that I want him to, and then I've seen him come through and go, okay, you were right. Like, God, you were right on that one, because if you'd have done it when I wanted you to, maybe I wasn't ready, or it just didn't work out the same. How many of you know that for some of you, God is answering your prayer, yes, but he's saying, but not right now, because you're not ready for it. My daughter just got her learner's permit to drive. Pray for me, right? She's like, now I'm ready. Like, I just got my learner's permit, so let's go get a Lamborghini, Dad. And it's like, I don't think you're ready for that. That's a lot of horsepower, Are you ready for that? Some of you maybe just aren't ready for what God wants to bless you with. I think about the miracle that's back here. All you people on the balcony, let me encourage you. You're sitting on a miracle. Because I prayed and prayed that God would sell our 10 acres of land on Latson Road. Because when we were building this building, we needed that money. And I'm saying, God, why don't you sell that to somebody, and we could use that money to get into this building? And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and it never happened. And I got to be honest, had he done it, we probably wouldn't have built a balcony. We probably would have, not cut out as many lights as we cut out, or we might have not cut out as many bushes as we cut out, or we were chopping the budget down to try to get it to be something that we could actually do. And had God given me an extra $300,000 or whatever, I can't remember exactly how much it was, we probably wouldn't have cinched our belts as tight, and we would have moved into this place, and that money would have just been. But do you know what God did? Every time I prayed, God, would you sell this land? He'd say, yes, but not yet. And then we moved into this place, and people started coming, and I came to our team and I said, we have got to find money to build out a balcony. That would be, if we did that, we could open up more space. And the day after that, we got a full price offer. The day after that, we got a full price offer on that land. And that money is what y'all are sitting on up there. It's a miracle. Aren't you encouraged? You're sitting on a miracle. You didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So understand that sometimes God is saying yes, but he's not saying it in the timing that you want. Martha was dead in her delay. She wanted God to work right now. And then there's Mary, probably the most difficult at all. Mary, she's dead in her discouragement. Watch this in verse 20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet Jesus. What did Mary do? Just stayed home. Because what's the use? Lazarus is already dead. God can't do anything now. I've heard the stories. He's healed lepers. He's healed blind people. He's walking on water. He can do some of those things, but this guy's dead. It's over. So what's the use? You hear that discouragement? How about us? Why go to church? What? You tell me what difference coming to church is going to make in my life. AA. AA's for people that can't get their life under control. That's what AA is for. That's not going to do anything for me. Discouragement. You know what? I'm always going to be this way. I'm never going to get that. Our marriage couldn't turn around. I'm never going to amount to anything. And people they get so discouraged. And for me, I think discouragement is the opposite of hope. Hope says the best is yet to come. I don't even know what it's going to be yet, but I've got hope. The best is yet to come. Discouragement says, it probably ain't going to get any better than this. In fact, it'll probably get worse. Discouragement's so ugly. When discouragement rears its ugly head, things begin to die on the inside. It was back years ago, and the way I know it was years ago is because I didn't have a smartphone to be able to check my email. I was coming home from a trip, and it was late at night. Everybody in my family was in bed, but I decided I was going to check my email. I lift up the computer, and I check, and here comes an email in, and I start reading it. And it was from somebody in our church, and I don't know if you know this, but church people can be really mean. Do you know that? They can. And not you guys, the Ann Arbor campus is what I'm talking about. You people are wonderful. But here's the deal. This person just criticized me up one side and down the other. And I don't know what it was. It was just I was tired and whatever. Normally I have a pretty thick skin with that stuff. But it just cut me, right? And I'm by myself and I'm discouraged and church wasn't going really well. And this came in, and I don't even want to admit this to you. But I had a little tear well up right here. Woe is me. And it comes down my face. And about that time, my daughter, who's I think 7 years old at the time, she comes out of bed. And she comes and she sees me. And she just gives me a hug. And she just holds on. And I say, hey, what are you doing? And not what are you doing hugging me, because she's always allowed to hug me. But what are you doing out of bed? You know, because it's late at night. And she just said, I'm hugging you until the tears go away. I know, right? I mean, it's so good. That is so good. Oh, so we got over it. I excommunicated that person, and it's not a problem anymore. No. I tell you that story because of this. Look at the very next thing. It says, when Jesus saw Martha weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, Jesus was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. See, Jesus was hurting as well. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. In this next verse, Jesus wept. The people who divvied up the Bible into little verses decided that this verse was so powerful, it just needed those two little words. Jesus wept. And what a powerful message it is to know that when you are discouraged, when you're doubting, when God's not answering your prayers in the timing that you want him to answer your prayers, that there is a Jesus who can weep with you, who can come alongside you and put his arms around you and say, hey, I understand. And I mean, he has perfect perspective, perfect wisdom. He knows all the purpose behind all the evil and all the junk that's going on. But it doesn't mean that he's just so elevated above you that he doesn't also understand what you're going through. I mean, look, Jesus already had a plan with what he was going to do here. So why is he crying? Because the people that he loves so much are hurting so much. And some of you need to know that that's the God that we celebrate. A God that could take whatever is dying on the inside of you and weep with you. A God who would, in that cafe, when you say, this is the thing that is killing me on the inside, before he'd snap his fingers and do anything about it, would just get up, go around, sit next to you, put his arm around you, and weep with you and just go, I totally know what you're dealing with. And some of you need to hear that today. Jesus weeps with them. And look, then what he does. In verse 42, he says, move the stone away from the tomb. And Jesus called out in a loud voice and said, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out. Now, don't you dare gloss over this moment. Don't you dare, you church people like me, if you grew up in church, think, oh yeah, I remember that on flannel board when I was a little kid in Sunday school. That was a nice little story. Don't you do that to this story. And if you're brand new here, don't you dare go, you know what? Oh, that's a nice myth. That's a nice allegory that we can draw some inspirational warm fuzzy from as I walk out of here. Jesus just took a guy who was dead 4 days, stinking dead, and rose him up. Rose him up. That really happened. And the reason it's important for you to know that it really happened is because some of you would dare to come to God and say, yo, yeah, I know you. I've got this alcoholism deal that's so dead in me. My self-control is so dead. I just don't know if you would have the power to do something for a person like me. And Jesus would say, hello, Lazarus. Or you would say, you know what? You know what? I used to want to attempt great things for God. I used to have confidence. I used to have joy. But you know what? Someone treated me poorly in my life, and now it's just, I just don't, that part of me is dead. That's the old me. Jesus would say, well, you know what? I've got good news from you. I specialize in taking dead things and raising them to life again. So whatever it is that you say is dead, guess who's got the power to raise things from the dead? God does. It said the dead man came out. His hands and his feet were wrapped with strips of linen and cloth around his face. And Jesus said to him, hey, take off the grave clothes and let him go. And I love that because I think some people need to hear Jesus will weep with you. Some of you are in the place where you need to hear that grace. But there is another group. There are some other people here that need to hear, take off your grave clothes. Jesus said, I'm not going to raise that guy from the dead and then have him walking around stinking like death. I just raised him from the dead. I don't want people going, that guy just, see, stinks like a dead man. And God, I think, would say, not to you people, and I'm praying that the Holy Spirit will kind of guide these words to whoever needs it. But there's another group of people who over here, Jesus has resurrected you. You've met Jesus. You are a Christian. And yet you're walking around stinking like a dead person. Where's your joy? Where's your victory? He said, well, you know what? 35 years ago, somebody teased me about being fat. And it put me into a downward spiral and whatever. Yeah, I came to Jesus, but I've just basically given up on ever getting in shape. What? Where is the fruit of the Spirit of self-control in you? Take your grave clothes off and start to live. You say, well, you know what? I had a relationship back then. We were like best friends, and she betrayed me 30 years ago. And so you know what? I came to Jesus. Now that I can do, but don't tell me to get into a small group. I'm never going to be vulnerable again with somebody. I'm never going to open up again with somebody. No, that's the way dead people act. Take off your grave clothes and live. You say, you know what? I took a risk. I attempted something for God even. I took a risk. I tried to start a business, or I did this. I tried to lead something, and you know what? I failed. And then through that discouragement, I met Jesus. And now I'm walking with Jesus, but I'm not going to try anything new. I got hurt back then. I'm going to be a victim the rest of my life. I understand some of you need Jesus to wrap his arms around you, but there are some people in this room that need to hear, you are alive. So take off your grave clothes and stop stinking like a dead person. The fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control. And so live in that life that Jesus has given you. Then in John 11:25, Jesus said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. And then Jesus asked the question. In fact, it says Jesus asked the question. It should be capital T, capital H, capital E question. Because this is the question. This is the question for you and me today. It says, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. And then Jesus asked the question, do you believe this? And I think Jesus was asking us that question today. I think he would say to some of you who are not yet Christians, you're just checking things out, and we love you, and you come here and you're just kind of testing the waters and you don't know where you stand yet. I think Jesus would say to you today, do you believe this? Because if you're ready to believe that and you're ready to commit your life to Jesus, we're ready to help you make that decision. There'll be people on either side here. We'll pray with you, answer questions, help you the best. Don't leave here today without making a decision to follow Jesus. We've got to baptize people already this weekend, and we'd love to help you make a decision for Jesus today. Maybe you've already made that decision, but no one's ever talked to you about baptism. We'd love to help you make that decision today. Maybe you're here today, and your next step with Jesus is just to get into a small group or to serve somebody. Maybe not even in this church, but to serve someone in your neighborhood or serve somebody at work. Maybe that's your next step with God. Maybe your next step is just to remember Jesus. You know, he took some bread one night and he broke it and he gave it to his disciples and he said, this is my body broken for you. Then he took the cup and he said, this is my blood poured out for you. And every time you eat this bread and drink this cup, remember me. He knew our propensity to forget. He knew our propensity to kind of put those grave clothes back on. And so he says, when you come and you eat this meal, you remember I died on the cross and then I came back. And we remember Jesus that way. During this song, people are going to pass some juice and some bread to you. If you want to remember him, then during this encounter time, we invite you to do that. Hey, I told you to download that PushPay deal. Here's our all-church challenge for today. We're talking about Jesus as a healer. And down next to our Ann Arbor campus, there is a place called Hope Clinic. I love Hope Clinic. I'm getting to know them. 2 years ago, we gave them some money during Christmas time. And it was just marvelous to get to know what they do. They give away free medical care to people that can't afford it. They give away free dental care to people that can't afford it. They give away food to people that can't afford it. They give away supplies to young mothers, diapers and baby food and pacifiers and things like that. They give away Christian counseling to people. This place is a rock star in the community down there. And so this is what I'd like to do. Our church is going to just go ahead and give $3,000 to this thing. If you go on to PushPay anytime during this day, and you go down to where it says donate, and it says 242 Brighton, you touch 242 Brighton, and it will let you select Hope Clinic. You select Hope Clinic, and then whatever you donate goes straight to Hope Clinic. Now, you need to understand something. If you're brand new, if you don't know the heart of this place, we don't take a percentage off the top. I don't get a kickback on any of this stuff. We're not partners with these people at all. I just see them down there doing God's work. And I thought, you know what? This is one of the great things about a big church, is that if every one of us gives $1 or $2, next thing you know, we're giving Hope Clinic $5,000, $10,000. So if you would today, I challenge you in our all-church challenge to get on there and donate a couple bucks to Hope Clinic. And we will celebrate. What a great way to celebrate Jesus as the greatest healer. They don't even know we're doing it, by the way. It's going to be a great service. So don't tell them, okay? If you know people down, don't tell them, and then we'll come down and we'll give them that donation. Hey, whatever your next step is, let's take it together as we sing this song.